Once the birthplace of one of the most innovative paper companies in Germany, this factory is now forgotten by time. Many inventions still in use today originated here, leaving lasting traces in history. However, a staggering 50 years ago, the paper factory was suddenly closed down, abandoning its machines and power station. In this episode, we enter this incredible piece of industrial heritage to uncover its long history and its downfall. The factory remains in a remote mountain village between hills next to a river. So we first had to find access to the aging factory halls, which turned out to be much harder than initially thought. The terrain itself varied greatly at different levels, sometimes resulting in steep drops. Many windows were also sealed shut. As a result, we ended up with just one option.
Aan dit kon je hier doorheen, kon je daarop en hopen dat je naar beneden kon komen ergens, maar dat is alleen.
The old ventilation ducts of one of the paper rolling machines. With a drop of around 10 meters, our fate and lives were now tied to this over 50-year-old abandoned machine. It didn't help that the machine was wet and slippery. We eventually made it to the ground floor. This right here is the main production hall. Within the hall, the paper truly came to life, eventually being rolled up into these rolls for transportation. But not much remains of this hall in terms of machines and structure. The over 50 years of being forgotten had left its scars. The tale of the factory starts in the early 1800s, when Germany was rapidly becoming one of the giants of the Industrial Revolution. With steam power still being relatively new, hydropower was sometimes cheaper and easier. This led to the creation of this factory, which in fact wasn't originally a paper factory, but instead a textile plant. However, with rising tariffs from the United States during the late 1800s, the large factory became unprofitable and eventually closed down. Although this marked the end of textile production, it wasn't the end of the story. Many of the stairs had been removed, making access more difficult. We entered a darker area. Paper is made from root pulp. We are now entering this production area. Yet again, many machines had already been removed, leaving only some behind. This area is also the oldest section, dating back to the 1800s when it served as a textile mill. Heading upstairs, we came across a part that piqued our interest. First, we came across the large machines that were used to create pulp from wood. An even more interesting part was in the next room. Right here, the previously made pulp was mixed with chemicals to prepare it for further refinement to eventually make paper. Such old machinery dates back to the pre-war era, which today rarely survives in many old paper mills. It was a true step back in time. The paper production began when the German industrialists acquired the closed-down textile mill at the end of the 1800s. Paper is made with large amounts of fresh water, which made the location next to a river perfect for paper production. The large halls were also compatible with this, and after a reconversion, paper production began. Wallpaper, to be exact, was made here in quite a successful manner until the First World War. With the world changing drastically, wallpaper production was no longer sufficient. Something had to change for the factory's survival. Eventually we made it to the roof of the oldest part of the factory. The roof was long gone, allowing plants to grow in the old factory hall. Besides this payback from nature, coal hoppers could also be found. These related to probably the main highlight of the factory. Turbine hall is where steam was converted to electricity. This happened in this modest and small turbine hall. Although decay was heavy, not much has changed since its construction. Even the desk remained in the same place since its commissioning in 1952. At that time, the turbine powered many of the machines in the factory with electricity. This turbine hall represents the true zenith of the factory, which was post-World War II. At this time, Germany was divided but in reconstruction, creating enormous wealth from many factories. The bags produced at this factory, for example, were used to carry coal and cement to Berlin during the Berlin blockade of 1948. But with mass production taking hold around the world, the small old factory faced future problems if nothing was done. Luckily, a new strategy was taking hold, focusing on quality instead of mass production, and probably even more importantly, innovation. During the 1950s, the already established coal and cement bag production continued, but it was combined with innovations developed at the Innovation Center next door. Products such as the still in use Jiffy envelope were invented and made here. The small factory, with its innovations, managed to maintain its standing against the giants emerging during this time. Next door was the old boiler house, where the roof broken open, rust and nature had finally taken hold in the old machine hall. In the boiler house, coal was combusted to create steam, which was used for power production, and also for the many heat-intensive machines in the paper production process. The results of 50 years of abandonment truly shows in what it had done to the old structure, sometimes making it look more like a sunken ship. In the end, the factory, with all its innovations, was sold to a Swedish company, which took all the patents and abruptly closed down the old factory and its innovation center. In 1970, production stopped, leaving all its contents still unstripped and intact. Today, partial demolition awaits the historic site, while some parts are intended to be reconverted into living spaces. But this ends this unique piece of industrial history of this small German village.